So, my topic, I was cringing. I don't think I picked that topic. I can't imagine I would have, but I'm going to step up to the plate here and say what I can say about it. It's living with the natural order of things and global healing, right? So I'm going to explain to you how that has been for me. So the Lakota way of prayer is, I would say that we're a visioning culture. We're crying out for vision, and we're encountering vision, and so as soon as I started going into these lodges, I started having visions, and so I started talking about these visions I had, and because we're singing about them, all the songs are about them, and people are like, "Oh yeah, right, you had a vision," and and I was like, "Okay, now I'm really confused." So I stopped talking about it. Don't talk about that. But it didn't mean I didn't stop doing it. And so basically I'm a woman who's led by her vision. So that's why I appreciate this woman who's in this moon lodge. We also call it dream lodge. That's how I was taught. And I was told that anytime a human being spills blood, then you're close to the spirit world. And thereby those dreams, those visions, they come. There's a ready-made pathway for them to come to the women every month. And I say, that our biology, well, let me back up. So in what I was taught in that Lakota way is that there's this sacred hoop of life. Every member of life, that one that just made that, the loons, crocodiles, platypus, everybody gets to have a spot on that sacred hoop of life, right? And everything has a perfect design to support the whole of thriving life for all. And so what I would propose is that even the five-fingered ones, that we were given a spot on that sacred hoop of life, and we have a perfect design to uphold thriving life as well. I think the world is in doubt about that right now. We got low self-esteem as a species. And so, but I'm going to say, no way, it can't be that we got put here and we weren't also gifted that. So I'm going with that premise. And so what I say is our biology still tells us a lot about this perfect design. And so for me, the fact that women all start cycling at the same time when they live together, well, I'm going to have to say that's a clue. That's a clue for us, isn't it? Because we haven't been going in the wrong direction so long that our biology is devolved to that death way of life. It's still trying its best to lead us to thriving life way. So I will say that the elders especially that first Tioshpie that I prayed with, they held the women in a very beautiful way. And for 2.5 years, I lived in blissful ignorance about how controversial that is for many people, and I got to spend time in there and dream and receive understanding and vision. And so I really give I have a lot of gratitude for the fact that I was shown that my biology gives me a spiritual capacity. Now the world today is pretty confused in many ways, and I don't mean to dishonor anybody here, but it's hard for me to hear. Gender is a cultural construct. Gender is a human construct. It doesn't really exist. Many people are saying that everywhere I go, and I'm like, from indigenous perspective, I'm gonna have to disagree with that. So I say there are people who menstruate and people who don't menstruate. There are people who provide that sacred seed and people who don't. And that doesn't mean that, so that's not saying anything about, in indigenous cultures in general, worldwide, we hold a spectrum of gender. It's not binary, but there's special circumstances. But I wonder, part of me wonders, I do know that there are people who are born in that way, and indigenous people have acknowledged those people always. But I also feel like in modern world, part of what I feel like might be happening as well is that because this, I say we live in a power over paradigm where you have to have power over another one in order to have what you need. So that's for real, right? I mean, it matters who has the power in the power over paradigm. Because if you don't have any power in that paradigm, sometimes you can end up in a position where your people have been dispossessed of your land, and all you have is 7-Eleven to try to feed your kids. Got to hear Don Juan Cibron in Veracruz talk about that. He said, when we got dispossessed of our land and we couldn't grow our own foods, we began to deteriorate physically, of course, mentally, emotionally, and then he said it. He said, but the most difficult part is how we are deteriorating spiritually, solely by the food that we have available to us. And that reminded me of sitting in ceremony with some of my Dene elders. And they always used to say, we're just junior elders. And they were like blowing my mind, right? And I was like, no way, you're the junior elders? And they said, we can't even touch what our elders used to be able to do. And I thought about it, and I saw, so here I am, California girl, said I still used. Anyway, so I'm watching this, and I'm watching them come out in the morning, and I'm watching them eat powdered donuts and Cokes and a bologna sandwich on Roundup wheat Wonder Bread. And I'm thinking, there might be a connection there between what our abilities are and our diet. That's what this elder said from another part of the world, and he knew it clear as day. So I began to know that my biology gave me a spiritual capacity. And I started going with it. And I kind of had to go underground with it because, like I said, in many places, like if a ceremony was being conducted and I was on my moon time, I learned that you don't just go in and start saying, well, you really need to have a moon lodge because blah, blah, blah. That didn't go so well for harmony in the ceremony. I did sometimes. I stood toe-to-toe with Leonard Crowdog at Big Mountain, and he made me a moon lodge, which was really surprising. With his wife standing there screaming in my ear. But I mellowed out a little bit for many reasons, mostly because the White Buffalo Calf woman came to me and she said, we don't bring ceremony where it's not wanted. When do we bring ceremony where it is not wanted? We don't do that. So I knew I had to do something else. So finally it occurred to me, I said, you know what, I don't have to do Moon Lodge ceremony in conjunction with these other ceremonies. We can just have our ceremony. I can just have my ceremony on my own. Now, depending on the spiritual leader, sometimes I would still go up to them and say, in a respectful way, I call them away from the fireplace, away from the sacred instruments, etc., bring them to the side and say, Uncle, just want to let you know that I'm on my moon time today, so I won't be joining you, but I want you to know that I'm going to be praying with you. I'm going to go down that way. And I just want you to know that in this special place that I'm in, I'm going to be praying with you and for you and in support of you. And sometimes they'd say, thank you very much, niece. And sometimes I'd say, great, thank you. But I felt like it was a necessary thing. Now you can feel out who you can say that to and who you can't without disrupting everything. So I began to do that. So I think that's a big part of how I ended up on this sort of somewhat solitary road. Now I started receiving vision about some things. And what I want to tell you about today is, because I mentioned it in that biography. That biography sounds kind of lofty. I don't say that to make myself sound big. I say that because there are people sitting here, I've talked with some of you who are doing big work, who are doing deep work, who are following vision and following heart. So I want you to know that I'm right there with you, and I want to keep affirming what is possible when we do that. So all those things, as I say, if you think I know how to make that happen, I don't. I don't, but I know how to listen. And I'm learning how to overcome my obstacles of what I think is possible and what I don't think is possible. That's irrelevant.